Great. Thank you so much, Erica and Kelly, and all that you do at the South Tampa Chamber. I'm going to let Brian introduce himself, and he'll turn it back over to me. Go ahead, Brian.
Sure. Good morning, everybody. Brian Sully with Averett. Looking forward to sharing some thoughts here about social media. I think it's a great opportunity for social media, and we'll talk a little bit about today how it can either be the best free marketing you can do, or it can be a waste of time. And Akash and I are going to show you how to make it the free marketing component of it. So Akash and I have known each other, I think, over 10 years at this point. So honored that he asked me to be a part of this as well. Thank you, Erica and Kelly, for hosting this. And yeah, Akash, we'll let you go first.
Great. And just so all of you know, my name is Akash Patel. If I've not met you at a South Tampa Chamber event, I've been a resident of South Tampa for nearly 14 years. I'm a Florida State grad like Kelly, so we get along well. And I will tell you that I'm part of a lot of other chambers, and I think the South Tampa Chamber is one of the best, if not the best, in this region. And a lot of you who have seen me speak before through the chamber or other organizations, I haven't really talked specifically about our business and what we do for social media. So I think that's what we wanted to do a little bit today. So the format for today is I'm just going to give a quick overview of what we do for social media, about 15 minutes max, and then Brian's going to talk about what he does for his clients with social media, again, another 15 minutes, and then we're going to open up to questions. I mean, at the end of the day, we really are here to serve you. Chamber members are helping each other, and that's what the platform that Kelly and the team at the chamber provide. So, you know, for those of you who haven't met me, I'm a big fan of Tampa. You can see our hashtag we use at Elevate is Tampa has swagger. I've been in business 8.5 years, and I think we coined that phrase around the first few months of the business. And so, next slide, please. And so all of our clients are featured on social media. And the social media avenues we're going to talk about today are Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. I know a lot of you are small businesses, and so the folks that I'm talking to have these platforms and are trying to always figure out the best ways to leverage social media to gain customers. For us, you know, Facebook is in an obvious because it's free. It's very popular, but it has to be relevant. So the first thing we do every day is we post relevant content. We do use a scheduling tool. There's many out there. I think Hootsuite is about $15. We also have used Buffer, and that's a free one. Both are great. But for Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn, all the platforms we do use a scheduling tool. Every time we use one of our tools, and every time we post, we always use a hashtag. So the first thing I would say to our small businesses and members that are on the call today is, you know, come up with a hashtag and be consistent about it. We like to share up-to-date data and up-to-date trends. And so what that means is there's articles in the paper every day that are relevant to what's going on in society. And I'm talking about business tips or things that are opening up. So for instance, if you look at this slide today, the first post on the left is a business journal article that says 5 effective tips that are for executives seeking a new vendor. A lot of us as business owners and business decision makers have to select vendors. So this is an article just talking about different people's expertise. And so obviously, you know, some of these people in this article are not customers of ours, but it's still good tips. So we took it, put it on our social media, and as you can see, we tagged, we used our hashtag, and a lot of people clicked the article and then some of them shared it. The other one to your right-hand side is talking about working remotely. So one thing we found is a lot of people, I mean, I don't think anyone expected the pandemic to this amount, but a lot of people didn't expect to learn how to work from home. You know, you have people that have children in the background, you have people that have a dual household, and it's hard to kind of manage. So one of the things we decided is to talk to our customers and find out what's keeping them busy, or talk to our friends. And so one of the first things that happened during the pandemic is people said, well, you know, what are the right ways to do a Zoom call? What's the appropriate attire? What's the appropriate backdrop, you know? And so I just took a few ideas that I compiled and wrote an op-ed and sent it to the business journal, and it ran. So I guess another part of staying relevant is creating your own content. And so we do a lot of that. And I do think that anyone can do it. It doesn't have to be put to a publication. You can put it to your own website. Next slide, please. Twitter is obviously another very effective tool. What I tell people is that is for people that want news fast. You can go on Twitter and you can find out because it has a character limit, really quick things about what's going on in the community. And you can also retweet and share. So our rule is always to retweet different posts 3 times a day. That could mean you go to the South Tampa Chamber, you go to the Tampa Bay Times, and you go to the Tampa Bay Business Journal, and just retweet one of their posts. Again, that just spurs people to read what you're reading and knowing what we're talking about. The other thing is people on Twitter, they have a schedule. Generally, they're always on it, background. And so we try to stay consistent in when we post new content. So when we schedule out, there's 3 times a day that we found most effective: 7 a.m., 11 a.m., and 4 p.m. So 4 p.m. is just before people log off their computers for work, generally. 11 a.m. is just before lunch, and 7 a.m. is when they start their day. So we're posting or resharing things at those times. Now you can choose the times that are best for your audience. We obviously want the best reaction and attention for when you post. And so we can be as simple as promoting something. It could be something as taking a photo, and it can be as simple as finding an article that you found valuable and sharing it on social media. And so what you see in front of you here is an op-ed that I wrote for the Tampa Bay Times. As soon as this pandemic hit, I talked about it on the chamber call that we had a couple of weeks ago when I was on the call with Brooke Palmer and Sally D. My birthday was during this pandemic, and obviously anybody who had a birthday or celebration, moved, or even something about weddings during this pandemic, it's tough to celebrate with your friends because of obvious reasons. But for us, we looked at what is a millennial, and I'm a millennial, and a lot of folks that are millennials had always had the perception that our generation was not the most active and not the most innovative. And if you think about it, what our generation was actually the ones that started working from home in the beginning and used social media for business, and Uber came through our generation. So I kind of wrote an op-ed. I wrote an op-ed and sent it to the Tampa Bay Times, and they ran it. And so what you're seeing today in the news cycle is a lot of news reporters that wouldn't really take your call or wouldn't really run with your story. They need positive content. And so my advice to a lot of folks out there is not just for social media, but for your business. If you have an idea, right, and something that you're doing differently, something that you're doing uniquely, and it's because of this pandemic you're doing that, I would share it. Again, I don't often think that people are interested in reading about millennials if you're not a millennial, but this spurred a lot of attention. And what reason is because one of the topics I talked about was, would millennials can they define this generation through this pandemic? And so as you can see, we put it on our Twitter, and it got, I think, 25 to 30 retweets. And then also the article I mentioned that we talked about before, the Business Journal, we put it on our social media, and we always tag the source. So I would say, remember to make sure you tag your author, tag the source, and as you can see, we're always using our hashtags. Next slide, please. LinkedIn is definitely another tool that I think people are finding most effective. LinkedIn is the most relevant, I think, to your business brand. What I tell people every day is LinkedIn is, people are on it all the time as well because they want to get in front of contacts. So if you have prospects that you were going to go after and you haven't had a chance to meet them, well, reach out to them on LinkedIn. If your prospects are on LinkedIn and you connect with them, send them a message. Our goal is to reach out to 10 people a week through LinkedIn, and we track it. And the other part of it is engaging content is always interesting for LinkedIn users. If you look at the first article we posted, everyone, doesn't matter what bank you're affiliated with, as a small business, has an opinion on the payroll protection, the PPP program that the government launched. So here I took an article from the Business Journal. I tagged, not the Business Journal, 10 News. I tagged, Pilot Bank, which is bank quoted in the story, and I tagged entrepreneurs. So now on LinkedIn, everyone that's within the entrepreneur world that searches through it will see this article. And you can see many people have their opinions on this. And so they're engaged. And so I would say pick a relevant article that's related to the pandemic, related to businesses, and share it. On the right-hand side, there's a client of ours named Jeff Nishwitz who took a play on the word TED Talks. Everyone knows TED Talks is, obviously very staged and very informative. Well, he called it Bed Talks. And so again, that's something unique that's during the pandemic that someone's created. And Bed Talks is just that. It's a play on TED Talk. It's talking about inspiration and things that you're doing just before you go to bed. So he's actually talking in his pajamas, and it's a video. And LinkedIn, which is not normally known for videos, I'm seeing a lot of people go on LinkedIn and do LinkedIn Lives and post videos. And I would suggest that everyone do it. So the same rules apply for LinkedIn as they do for Facebook. We do post 3 times a day on LinkedIn, and that's also sharing, that's also commenting, and that's also posting articles. Because again, you're trying to be a center of resources, center of credibility. All of you are members of the South Tampa Chamber. If you're not sharing the South Tampa Chamber updates once or twice a day on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter, I mean, I would think you need to at least look at it and check out what they're posting, because they're posting more effective news every day as they come. So last night, just before I signed off, I saw Kelly shared the Hillsborough County Extension for the next 15 days. That's relevant news. Share that on your LinkedIn. People that follow you want to be up to date on the news. So again, this is one of the best performing platforms we see for your brand and for your business. And your news feed is a really good way for past customers, current customers, and for prospects to see what you've been up to. Next slide, please. And then I think we talked about Instagram as well. Can we go back to Instagram, Brian? I think we missed that one. Oh, well, we'll go. We'll just talk about Instagram. I think we missed the slide, but Instagram.
I don't see it, guys. Sorry.
What's that?
I do not see another slide here. Sorry.
No worries, no worries. We'll just talk about Instagram as well. For those of you who are on Instagram, again, it's a very visual platform. We do use it to post engagement. Video is very, very well done now on Instagram. I do suggest that you share it. These are the tips that I mentioned. Again, I think I went over almost everything, but make sure that you are posting at least once a day on Instagram. We try to post, but for Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, it's 3 times a day. Many of you can post more. The other thing, go ahead, next slide, please. The other thing, a lot of people have been doing lately is, you have a lot of time to catch up with contacts, and everyone has their email addresses. An email is, everyone has time to respond to emails. So we are putting a goal, and we're setting up at least reaching out to at least 5 new people on email a day, just sending them an email on how they're doing. And then the other part of it is a lot of the content that we're sharing on our social media, we've put it into a constant contact and do an email blast. Now, most organizations like the Chamber or the Partnership or other organizations in town do a weekly email blast, and we do ours bi-weekly. And the goal of the email blast is just to inform clients and prospects and other people that are reading the email blast just what's going on. We feature articles, we feature events, we feature videos, we feature we highlight different people. What we're trying to say is everyone is doing something positive during this pandemic. And using all your email addresses you have, if you don't use Constant Contact or MailChimp, those platforms are very easy to create. And a lot of people are using this time to gain traction, to promote themselves and get people to sign up to their newsletter. I think it's a free form way of marketing yourself, and for small businesses, that's a great price and it's a very it's not time intensive. And then when you have the email blast link, so we send it out every Wednesday. So the next one is going to be May 4th for us next Wednesday. If you're not on the list and you want to be on the list, we're happy to put you on our list. But if not, we take the link and then we put it on our social media. So again, we're resharing content on our different platforms. We're staying up to date with trends on everything we're doing. And again, we're doing this in the mornings. We send this on the mornings because we find the best time to reach someone by emails in the mornings. Next slide, please. This is our team. You've probably seen our team throughout the South Tampa Chamber Events Networking. I think Ryan is on this call. Next slide, please. And these are all the media outlets we've partnered with or we've shared. So if you're not sure what to share, you can go on Fox 13's Twitter or Channel 8's Twitter or Tampa Parenting Magazine's Twitter or Facebook. And if you're over across the bridge, I Love the Bird, again, ABC Action News, 83 Degrees. These are all just sources that they're both. We take content from it and share it, and then we call them when we want to talk about what's going on in the community. Next slide, please. I shared about different articles and different media we've been featured in, and again, it's just about the more positive things you're sharing right now. Newspapers and television will pick it up. Next slide, please. So you can see on the right-hand side, both on the left-hand side and the right-hand side. The left-hand side is Channel 8 does a segment called Saturday Spotlight. What that means is they just highlight people doing good things, and there's something going on right now. They're doing it on Channel 8 as well. And it's a generic email address you email. It's I'll get it to you, but it's at AAFLA.com, and they're doing something good. And Meredith Cicella does it every morning. And so if you know a neighbor, if you know a friend, if you know a prospect, if you know a customer that's doing something positive, you write 300 to 500 words and you send it in, they'll run it. And like I said, right now, it's really common that they run more than one story a day because they need that positive news. On the right-hand side is the Tampa Bay Times column I talked about. As most of you know, the Tampa Bay Times during this pandemic, they went from 7 days a week hard copy to 2 days a week hard copy. So what that means is there's more room for letters to the editor and opinion columns. So if you have something to say and you want to share it, I would share it here. I would share it through the South Tampa Chamber website. Go ahead, next slide, please. So this is just a little update on how many followers we actually have on social media. These are our hashtags. If you're not following us, please follow us. We'll follow you back. If you ever want us to share something you're doing, send me an email. I love sharing things that are members of the South Tampa Chamber. We retweet the South Tampa Chamber at least 3 times a week, and we do their email. We love their email blasts and their morning minutes. I know Kelly does on Mondays. So again, Facebook Live is very prevalent too. I know Kelly does a great job of it. So what we're suggesting is during this pandemic, if you've not leveraged every platform of social media, and if you've not tried different things, definitely try it. And I'll turn it over to Brian.
Great, thanks, Kash. So with Averitt, we're a growth agency, typically helping businesses grow, whether it's leadership development, executive coaching, or marketing. But part of it is about social media. So I was pretty excited for this topic of social media today because I think it plays very nicely into growing your business. And I guess I've got a challenge for you guys today. Maybe you can all email Kelly after the call, or you can email me. But here's the challenge: is I'm going to double something this month. And let's say this month is May. And whatever's relevant for your business, are you going to try to double your followers, double your influence, double your retweets? You know, pick something on some social media platform, whether it's Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, etc. Have some type of a goal. And hopefully by the end of this presentation, you'll have a couple of really practical and tactical ideas on how to actually do that, depending on how small or big your presence is. This may be harder or easier for you, but there's something that you can do. And what I've found is that when you have the mindset of, I'm going to double my social media presence, I'm going to double my marketing, I'm going to double my business, the reality is you can triple or quadruple too. There's nothing, double is not a glass ceiling in any way, shape, or form, right? So when you're doing the things that it takes to be relevant and be engaging on social media, kind of like what Akash has already covered, you're well on the way. So I've got a little bit of a trick question for you. This is a random real estate index, so don't think too hard about it. But if I just put this on the screen real quick and asked all of you guys, whether you've got real estate experience or not, when is a good time to buy real estate? The obvious answer is right about here, right? Maybe 2001, 2002, but basically when the market dips, that's when you invest. I'm not a stock person, stockbroker, anything like that, but again, I can probably show you just a generic stock graph, and same thing. If you want to make money in the stock market, you should have bought about here, right? What I don't hear a lot of people talk about right now is mind share and market share. And right now during a pandemic, that's all cheap. And I believe it's time for you to invest. It's time to invest in market share, in mind share, in influence, in your social media presence. People are home, they're available, they're on digital, they're looking at their computers now, they're looking at their phones. And unless they're taking my advice, your competitors probably aren't doing this. I've been a little bit more bold saying that this week because I've actually had a couple people call me actually literally this week and say, hey, Brian, you know, you suggested this a couple weeks ago. It's actually working. Is we've doubled down on our digital presence, and we don't think our competitors are. Our competitors are just hanging out. I don't know. They're just waiting until the pandemic's over, and we're getting a lot of traction. So this is kind of the mindset that I'm in, and I want to share some tips and tricks on how to really think about this from an exponential standpoint versus just incremental. Incremental growth is great, but exponential is bigger. Going from 20 followers on Twitter to 25 is good, right? It's good track. But the reality is, how do you go from 20 to 200? And if you can figure out what that metric is, and you can figure out how to do that, then you get exponential growth with social media and really any marketing that you're doing. And it's a lot easier than you might think. Here's what I mean. Levers. You can lift, you can move a lot of things with a lever. So we all know this, right? If you've got a huge success, you've got something, a big boulder, if you push on it, you're going to have some level of success, right? But if you get a lever out, you can move something that is much heavier than you can. Just earlier this week, I had to move a couch in my house, and I was just teasing my 5-year-old that they could help me move the couch. You can help me lift the couch. And my 5-year-old believes me because I'm his dad, and I seldom let him down. He's like, but he's scratching his head. He's like, how do I lift it? How do I lift a couch? So I went out to the garage and I got 2 pieces of wood. And as you might guess, I came in with a lever and a fulcrum. And we had just been studying that. My wife got a little kit for him, and he's learning about levers and fulcrum. And of course, it's not going to blow any of your minds, but you put a little piece of wood on another little piece of wood, and his little 5-year-old self can stand right on that piece of wood and lift the entire couch up off the floor so that we can slide the carpeting underneath it. It kind of blew his mind. And I don't hear a lot of people talk about this when it comes to marketing. And the reality is there's some tricks out there that don't cost anything that you can do that will do the exact same thing that I'm talking about here. And part of it's a mindset, part of it is about knowing what to do, and then the third part is just executing it. The other thing I want to mention is the old 80-20 rule. The adage or the history goes that back in Italy, Mr. Pareto noticed this trend that 20% of the population owned about 80% of the real estate. And they what am I trying to say? I lost my train of thought. They owned about 80% of real estate, and he started looking around, right? He started looking around Italy. Where else does this rule of thumb take place? And it's not everywhere, but he started to notice that a lot of times 20% would drive 80% of results. So when we think of productivity, 80% of the time might drive 20% of your results in your business, but 20% of the time drives 80% of the results. And so my thought and my challenge to you guys is, how can we apply that with social media? And let me throw out a couple of suggestions here. When you're measuring impact on social media and digital marketing, is you might find that 80% of your followers come from only 20% of your posts. 80% of your engagement might come from only 20% of your followers. 80% of your revenue impact comes from 20% of your activity. And then when it comes to measuring influence, we can probably look at some similar things, right? 80% of your retweets might come from 20% of your followers, and 80% of your likes might come from certain hashtags you're using. 80% of your views come from 20% of your content. So this is where I start thinking about leverage and scale and growing your business. And if you think about some of the things that Akash has already suggested, this is free and easy for you guys to think about, and just to look back at your data points and find out what's relevant, what's making a difference. Akash gave you a couple free tricks on terms of times a day that you post, but start to look at your specific business, because I love how many people are on this call here. I know we've got a wide variety. We've got people in restaurants, we've got people in air conditioning, I see, builders. I mean, all of you guys sound like you're in different verticals and different segments. And I can't tell you today what you should do specifically in your business, but I would submit that you know which hashtags and which followers and which content is going to drive activity and engagement. And if you think about it and have the mindset for the 80-20 rule, it can really make a pretty big difference. By the way, I love engagement. If I were with you in person, I'd probably say the exact same thing. I know a couple of you guys are on video. I do have my chat window open. If you guys have questions, if you want me to expound on something, just drop it on chat real quick. I think there's a virtual hand raise feature in Zoom now. makes me feel like I'm not completely just talking to an empty room here. So please feel free to chime in. We're a small enough group we can engage a little bit. So here's a couple things with the Pareto principle that I would recommend, and then I'm going to give you 5 very practical things that you can do that'll hopefully give you some good takeaways. One is be authentic, be yourself. Don't try to be somebody else. I actually do get this question. I know it probably seems really simple on a slide deck here, but I actually get the question pretty often. I feel like I have a conversation every week, is be yourself. If you're a small business, it's okay, be a small business. If you're a big business, it's okay, be a big business. Don't try to fake your persona or your personality. Just be your business. Just like Jeff Nishwitz, with his bed talks, like be who you are, right? The second one is be relevant. I won't belabor this point. I think Akash covered this really well, but it really is the truth. And it takes a little bit of work and a little bit of research to be aware of what's going on in the world. But it is very, very possible to do. Be timely. So social media is not something that you can be hands-off with, right? You can't just set something to post at 8 o'clock every day for the next 2 weeks or whatever, and then expect to be engaging. You've got to be relevant and timely at the same time. If there's the Hillsborough County extension that's happened right now, you've got to get out there and spread that message and talk about it. If something happened in the news yesterday, talk about how to do it. And the last part is engage. And one thing I want to show you today with a couple of technical tricks is you can automate, going back to the Pareto principle, you can automate the 80% of the mundane and free up your time or your team's time to engage with your followers. And that's really where the magic happens, right? Posting a couple times a day is a necessity. You have to do it. But when you start seeing people like and retweet and reshare, and then you start engaging with them and you're commenting back and you're posting what they have, that's really where you'll see that exponential growth. And we'll show you a couple ways to do that. So here's a trick for you that you guys can all do. And I'm using a little bit of dated trends here, partly for a reason, just so I don't hit too close to home on anything. But this is a trending topic on Twitter. And Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter all have trending topics. So keep with your brand advice, like what Akash said, pick a brand hashtag and keep that as the constant. And then on some posts, look and see what's happening for today. So Tuesday Thoughts at the time was trending. Throwback Thursday is another one that goes around in circles around pretty often. So if today is Wednesday, what is it? It's April 29th. There is something trending on Twitter. There's something different probably trending on Instagram. Join the conversation. Just go take 2 seconds, look at the hashtag and see what's out there. And the magic is that when you use a hashtag that you haven't thought of that is trending, you will get hundreds or thousands more views on your tweet or your post than you would otherwise get. So this is free. You can do it right in the platform. But there are other tools that you can use as well. This is a product called Hashtagify. I'm not necessarily endorsing this one. There's probably 100 of them. So do your own research. But for example, you can go use a product like this one, go type in a hashtag that you're thinking about using, and it'll tell you what's the popularity, what's the monthly trend, what's the weekly trend, and it'll give you some advice on whether you should be following a particular trend and what drives influence for you. Another one that is out there is called Keyhole, which gives you some pretty good visibility into top influencers and what are the top guys doing, what's their reach, what's their post, what's their impression. And I'm not trying to make a mountain out of a molehill. This is not rocket science. Anybody can do this. If you've got somebody in your team, you've got an intern, you've got working remote, this is something that all of you can do it. Even if you're a leader in your organization, you can take a couple minutes a day and do this as well. And I will submit that almost overnight, you can see an exponential effect in your social media, joining a conversation that's going on. Again, keep in mind, feel free to drop any more questions in here, and Akash is going to help me moderate some of these here too. So feel free to put those in the chat. So let me show you five things about really scaling your social media, and really you can apply this to digital marketing and other areas too. One is to have a laser focus. So join the conversation, but don't be afraid to have your angle in life, if you will, meaning you fill a certain niche, you provide certain value services in an industry. If you're in real estate or HVAC or food, like don't feel like you have to deviate too much from that. You can tweet something else or join the conversation where it's appropriate. But as far as a brand and a personality, don't be afraid to stick with what you know. And laser focus when it comes to digital always wins out, because people need to see your brand consistently. There's different numbers that are out there, but people need to see your logo 7 to 10 times before they'll remember it. They need to hear your name 20, 25 times before they'll think of it, unprompted. Whatever those psychological metrics are, digital consistency makes a huge difference. So clarify your message, clarify what your business does. More than anything with social media, come up with a very short, abbreviated message of what you do. I don't want to offend anybody, but the reality is a lot of people probably don't care about the brand of your company as much as they do what you do for them, right? It's the what's in it for me. So, for me, sure, I think I've got a great company, but the reality is the reason we have customers is people want to grow their business. And so our message clarification at Averitt is we help other businesses grow and scale. And it's simple, it's short, we can put it on social media, we can put it on email signature. So figure out what it is for you that drives that what's in it for me. And if you've been around for 30 years, that's awesome. But a customer is probably trying to solve a particular need that they have right now. And it's a great leverage and great value when you are consistent and laser focused. The second one is, once you have laser focused, is stay consistent. One of the worst things that you can do is join any social media platform or any conversation for a certain amount of time and then quit. And I wish I had a nickel for every time somebody has called me in the past couple of years and said, we tried Instagram and it didn't work. We tried LinkedIn and it didn't work. And usually my follow-up question is, what did you try and how long did you try it for? Because inevitably in 100% of those scenarios, I think I can safely say they tried that platform for a very short amount of time, maybe for a week or a month or 3 months, and you have to be consistent. Your digital media presence, especially social, is like your online heartbeat. And a lot of your customers and vendors, you might think that they're not engaging with you on social, which might be because they need more relevant content. But you might have a lot of customers buying from you because they did go look at your social media and they saw that you were alive and well, and you were open, and you had a heartbeat, and you were there, and so they picked up the phone and called you. And they may not necessarily tell you, hey, we just ordered from you today because of your Twitter account, because it wouldn't entirely be true, but they may have looked at your Twitter account to see if you were still around and if you're open during the pandemic. I saw some conversation about the Indian restaurant going on in the chat earlier. I love Indian food. For me, at least, I don't go anywhere right now without calling ahead or checking digital to see if the restaurant's open, right? Because everybody seems to have different open hours and work hours, and just expect that regardless of what industry you're in, a lot of your customers and prospects right now are going to be checking up on you to see if you're open, if you're doing business, if you're there, what you're up to, and if you're able to work and service and help them. So be consistent. The third one is be disruptive. So this is an interesting topic of conversation. I do want to clarify what I'm about to tell you has nothing to do with ethics or getting bad limelight in the news. It's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is, in a lot of scenarios, there's a mold that doesn't need to be there that you can break. What's something in your industry, your vertical, that all of your competitors follow and do, and that you follow and do, that doesn't need to be there? In the tech world, where I've come from with my business, a lot of times people would charge a setup fee, just because everybody else charged a setup fee. And so I might sit down and say, you know what? Why am I charging a setup fee? I could raise my prices and not charge a setup fee, and maybe it would sell better. So it's okay to be disruptive and do something different. And I think this is a time to look at the big brands, like what are the big guys doing? And before you think, well, I'm not the McDonald's of the world, that's okay. Doesn't mean you can't look and see what they do. And again, I'm not talking about developing a bad reputation, but here's a couple things that some of the other brands are doing is McDonald's, for example, they tweet out, and this is a little bit older tweet, but again, I didn't want to hit too close to home with anybody. But McDonald's said today, we've announced that by mid-2018, all quarter pounder burgers at the majority of our restaurants will be cooked with fresh beef. And so you've got the social media guy at Wendys that jumped into the conversation. So you'll still use all frozen beef in most of your burgers in all of your restaurants, asking for a friend. So you can leave it whether you should do that or not in your industry and how well you know your competitors. In this scenario, maybe the social media managers are friends or the same agency. I have no idea. So I'm not talking about being mean to anybody, but if there's a little bit of a banter that you can do with a friend or a colleague or a vendor or customer that you know really well, or just kind of poke fun out there, what I want to point your attention to is look at the engagement on McDonald's tweet. It's pretty good, right? 1,000 comments, 8,000 likes, right? Those are pretty good numbers. But look at Wendy's. I think I got almost 8,000 comments and 182,000 likes because they're funny and people are sharing it and people are talking about it. And I don't think anybody's going to be mad at either brand because of this, but it's disruptive and it's interesting. Here's another one. This is probably pushing it a little bit in my opinion, but somebody engaged with Wendys and said, hey, I want Wendys, but my girlfriend wants McDonald's. What do I do? So they reply and say there are plenty of fish in the sea. Again, use your judgment, use your discretion, but it's a little bit funny and it gets a lot of engagement. And I believe on this one, I read some press releases and articles where then Wendys is getting press releases and news articles and bloggers talking about their tweet. So again, don't necessarily do exactly what they did, but maybe this encourages you to be a little bit disruptive. Here's another one just from food. You can tell I'm approaching lunch, maybe I'm hungry here. But somebody finally figured out that KFC on Twitter only follows 11 people. They follow five Spice Girls and 6 guys named Herb, 11 herbs and spices. It took a while probably for somebody to figure that out, and same thing, there were news articles and blogs that were all going on about how this is hilarious that KFC is actually making a brand statement about their 11 herbs and spices in their recipes, and they figured out a way to attach it to Twitter. So good for them from being disruptive, right? Disney did this with the launch of Cinderella, or Beauty and the Beast, Beauty and the Beast. They partnered up with Kohl's. They used Twitter engagement to drive a reward where they would ship flowers to somebody at their house. Kind of a cool way to think about how you could meld digital tweets with physical in-person effects. So again, you could probably figure out how to do this in your business, even if you're not Disney. And last but not least, I'll give everybody a minute on this one. Does anybody know which relevant news topic Merriam Webster was chiming in on? Any guesses in the chat window here? Akash, you can't comment. You already know. Do you guys remember what the Yanny and Laurel debate that went around on social media? Did the audio sound like Yanny or Laurel? And it was like blowing up everywhere. And so social media manager Merriam Webster figured out how to jump in on that. And they did a top lookup on the definition of Laurel, right? If Merriam Webster as a dictionary can figure out how to do that, we can all figure out how to do that, right? We can all figure out how to jump in on a conversation that is brand appropriate and will stay on track with what we're trying to do. So that kind of leads me to my fourth point, which is it really is it's an open book test. So social media by design is open, right? You can go look at what your competitors are doing, what your vendors, your customers are doing, and see what works, right? What hashtag are they using that drove 1 million tweets? You may not have had 1 million retweets so far, but it doesn't mean you can't join that particular conversation. And the way that you can practically do that is to always A/B test. So just like we're taught in school, have a control, have a variable. In marketing, we often do that, right? We send an email with 2 different subject lines. We see what performs better. We can all do that with social media too. Put the same content on 2 different platforms, see which works better, and then learn from it. Put 2 different content on the same platform, see which works better, and adjust to what works for your business and your industry and what gives you the visibility and the impact and the movement in whatever direction, whether it's lead generation or visibility for your brand. And then to pull it all together, if you follow these 4 advices, the 5th one is then to use technology, right? And Akash alluded to this earlier, but this is where you can use a tool like Hootsuite, HubSpot. We're a HubSpot partner, so we use HubSpot a lot. I know a lot of people use Hootsuite. It's free or very cheap. Buffer is another one. I think Akash, some of your clients use that one. So whatever it is, just use something. This will help automate the 80-20 rule. So make sure you're posting consistently at 8 a.m. every day. So do that as well. And then use the 20% of your time that you spend on social media to go look for a trending topic and look for a trending article on something in the news and figure out how to join the conversation and be relevant. And if you do these 5 things, I can almost guarantee you that you will exponentially grow your social media presence. It is an open book test. This is what works. This is what all the top brands do. This is what the local brands like Elevate do. It works, and all of you guys can use it. So those are really the tips that I have as well. Happy to answer any more questions over email. But right now we're just going to open up to conversations. Please don't leave yet. But if you want to turn on your video, turn on your audio, put questions in the chat box, and Akash and I will moderate a couple more questions for you guys and hopefully encourage you.
Great, Brian. Thank you so much. And I think we had a question from Rod. Rod, did you want to ask your question?
Yeah. Thanks, Akash, and thanks, Brian. Just curious about the engagement 7, 4, and 11, about trying that with different platforms or sticking to just a certain platform for best engagement. And also, I wanted to find out on a practical level to, staying engaged, but not getting into rabbit holes and, realizing you wasted a couple of hours on social media when you should be making, sales calls.
Right. Yeah, that's a tough one. So the first one I would say is to A/B test, because a platform that works really well for you may work differently for somebody else on this call. And frankly, it could work differently for somebody in your organization. So I would encourage you to try Twitter and Facebook and compare the 2 together. And if you find much better success on one platform, don't be afraid to not focus on the one that didn't drive the results for you. So that's where the micro testing comes in. Akash, do you want to jump in as well on that?
Yeah, I think I've tried 7 a.m., 11 a.m., and 4 p.m. on all of our networks at the same time, but I think I found the most engagement for Twitter. So I think for you is really just take a Monday through Friday and kind of just try a different platform every day and study it, and but be consistent with whatever it is. So once you finalize that time, that's the time for every day for forever.
Thank you.
And then
another question here from Ernest. Do hashtags carry over to different platforms for trends? I think the first answer is it depends. You have to look at the day, right? Look whether thoughtful or trending Tuesday, is that actually trending in 2 different platforms? In my personal opinion, I guess the ones that I've seen is usually you'll see a big trend on just one platform, and it'll be something just on Twitter that just kind of takes off. Now, a lot of brands will post the same hashtag to 4 different platforms, but that doesn't mean that it's trending. Usually it's just a conversation on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is much more business focused, right? Facebook is much more consumer. Instagram's really good when you're photo based, right? It's harder to share articles on Instagram than it is on LinkedIn. So they do tend to be different sets of trends. I could be wrong in general. It might be different for your industry, your product. So do the research on it, but I think they do tend to be different in my opinion. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Akash?
Yeah, no, I think I definitely agree with you. And we have another follow-up question here from Rod. Our question that the chat just went away here, but I think the question was, would you say content or type of business industry may affect the time you post? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're in an industry which is heavily busy in the evenings, then probably people aren't going to be as engaged. But if you're in an industry where in the mornings people are checking their news before they go to work, I would definitely post more in the mornings. Brian, what would you say?
I agree 100%. I think people are more likely to consume a productivity tip or news during the day and then something a little bit lighter in the evening. So if you've got a sale that you're doing and it's about your brand, it's better to do that during the day than at 8 p.m. But if you're jumping in on a conversation about something cool in Tampa that's happening, maybe you put that at your 4 o'clock post so that people see it into the evening.
I do want to pick on someone since we're about to wrap up. But Brianna, are you on the call still?
Sure am.
Great. I know, Brianna, we talked at the last chamber event, and you were going to try the LinkedIn tidbit that I shared about reaching out to people at least 10 people a week on LinkedIn. How's that? Can you just give us an update?
Sure. It's going really well. It's a lot of fun, actually, because it gives you like a goal to expand your network. So, a lot of times with LinkedIn, sometimes you connect with people, like for instance, some of you may receive messages from me today because we haven't had a chance to meet in person. Some of you I know already. Rod, we've connected in the past. So, what's neat is it gives you this opportunity to connect with people, but then I've been doing some follow-up as well, like scheduling calls or Zooms and getting to connect with some people that way. And it just continues a conversation. You find new things you have in common with people and, try to support each other. Gives you a good goal to expand too.
Yeah, thanks for letting me put you on the spot, but I did want to share that. That's a great point that everyone on this call, if you're not connected with each other on LinkedIn, you should be, because you can see each other's names in the chat box and in the participants logo, and you're all members of the chamber. So at some point, you'll see each other in person when all this is over. So I do think, leveraging LinkedIn and doing what Brandon just mentioned is great. So Brian, any closing thoughts before we turn it over to Erica?
No, that's really all I have. Hopefully this is encouragement for you. And just to tie it back to how can you double something this month? If you're starting out, how do you get somewhere? And if you've already got 100 followers on a platform, how do you get to 200? So hopefully this is some practical tips for you. And thanks again, Erica and Kelly. Back to you, Erica.
Well, thank you guys so much. I took a ton of notes, so I'm excited to bring that back to our staff. But as I mentioned, feel free to drop your information in the chat. And if you'd like to download it, those 3 little dots at the bottom will help you do that. And this recording will be up on the Chamber website and our YouTube page, if not later today, then by tomorrow. So thank you both, Akash and Brian, once again, for supporting the Chamber and getting us some great information today.
Our pleasure.
I'll leave the Zoom open for another 5 minutes in case anybody has any further questions, and please do reach out if the Chamber can be of assistance in any way. Okay.
Rebecca, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Are the Blue Angels flying over Tampa?
The last I had heard they were going to do the 2nd, but now I guess they said that they're not, and to follow the Blue Angels for their most recent scheduling. I know Kelly had reached out to Terry so that we can get the specifics on it, but I don't think we have them yet. But
the city of Tampa told me 2 o'clock on Saturday, but it's not confirmed. And McDill said, follow the Blue Angels on Facebook. Yeah. I know they were in New York and Philadelphia yesterday or the day before, and they posted like their entire flight plan. So I think the idea behind it is they're trying to be cognizant of not having people gather and have crowds. And so it's going to be really last minute announcements. I'm hopeful that Tampa is still included on the schedule since we were part of their air show schedule earlier this year.
Yeah, cross my fingers. Thank you both. Great.
Thank you guys. That was great information. And I haven't met you before, Brian, so it's nice to virtually meet you. I sent you a LinkedIn invite.
Awesome.
Great information.
Great to meet you too. Yeah, if you have any questions or bounce ideas off me, let me know.
Awesome. All right, you guys have a great day. I'm off to the next meeting.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, guys.
Okay, bye.
All right, thanks, Erica. Thanks, Kelly. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.